This is Geek Gab with your host, Dornall and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back, Geek Gab, for Saturday, March 11th, 2023. Dornall, how was your week?
Bro, you got the year right. My week has now been topped off. I've been distracted lately, work and sick. My poor fiance's had a cold all week. It's a real bummer. Um, got some stupid stuff to talk about. Some cool stuff and some stupid stuff to talk about. Want to hear it?
Sure.
All right. So spending some sick time on the couch, and by the way, I apologize for everybody who's jumping in live. We're starting a lot later than we usually do. We'll probably be a short show today. Um, but spent a little time on the couch with a dumb horror movie on in the background called Smile. I don't think we talked about it. Have you seen it or heard of it or anything?
I did see it. I actually did a review on it, I think.
Really? Well, I don't recall the review. Uh, and the movie was even more forgettable than the review. What can I say? It was a bland, poorly written, stupid modern horror movie that had no point. Um, great. Yeah, the evil spirit wins. Anyway, I
Yeah,
don't think.
too many horror movies think that's a smart ending to the movie is, evil wins. It's like, no, that's not good. That's
Uh,
not smart. That's not a change up.
they reused they reused the same gag over and over again. The character thinks she's talking to a person. Oh no, it's really a hallucination caused by the evil spirit. Uh, the poor troubled character who's cursed gets startled and drops a wine glass on the floor and it shatters twice in the same place. One of the other character even noticed it. He's like, "Did you drop another glass?" It's so stupid, really bad. Um, but hey, since watching Cocaine Bear, the bar is that low. It could be worse. It could be Cocaine Bear.
Oh,
Um,
there was a news story this week. Uh, real news story from like Cincinnati or Detroit, where a cat was found having overdosed on crack.
a poor
This
thing.
is this is true. This is literally true. And they had to save its life. I just saw this yesterday. So true. So, yeah, uh, the prediction I saw on Twitter, this is not my prediction, this is someone else's prediction on Twitter, is that they're going to make a sequel to Cocaine Bear called Crack Cat.
Ah, crack cat. Well, maybe they'll get some writers who can make it funny this time.
That could work as a humorous movie, maybe.
Oh, trust me, Cocaine Bear attempted humor a couple times. But that's the thing. That's actually just a sad story because cats are very entertaining naturally. As evidence, I offer the entire internet.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what the internet is for. Cats and the other thing that the internet is for.
Yeah, there's an interview with the man who invented the World Wide Web, coined the phrase the World Wide Web, and they asked him. They said, "So what's the most surprising thing that came out of it?" And he said, and this isn't a quote, but he said something along the lines of, I never would have guessed that the web would be used for so many cat pictures."
You have to keep talking because I'm just laughing.
Well, That's a great story. But the movies, not so much. Hey, other good news this week for those of you following the blog. We know that we've been interacting with Jeffro Johnson quite a bit behind the scenes, um, participating in his wild D&D experiments. Well, he's finally condensed a lot of the experiments and learnings and everything into a book. So if you would permit me to shill for a little bit, um, Jeffro's got a new book out. I haven't read it yet, but we're part of the experiment, so we can read between the lines. It's called How to Win at D&D, which is a great title. Yeah, I think he must have done it just to steal the title from John Mollison before he could write the book.
And
Um,
here's the thing. Here's the two things. If you'll allow me to brag, I was the first person in the entire world to order a copy of the book.
nice.
Um, so the announcements went out, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And I went to the site and I ordered it, and it turns out I was number one. Um, and the second thing is, this is only the first book based on this material. Um, it is an excerpt of the material he's prepared for a much longer work that covers many more topics on this subject. Um, so Pylon Press, the editor of whom we've had on the show, and previous books from whom we have, I guess, pimped hard, like Shagduck and the new Skylar Hernstrom books, um, is also publishing this one. So they are definitely the press to watch. Our friend Neil Durando is uh, publishing this one too. So it's going to be great because they only publish great stuff.
Absolutely. What a good eye. I'm so thrilled that Jeffro hooked up with Neil to make this happen because, I mean, like I said, the stuff that Jeffro's writing, if you've heard me or DW wax poetic, like if you're one of us waxing poetic about it, a lot of the ideas we're paraphrasing either from those discussions, from those experiments, or directly from Jeffro, right? So if anybody wants to know, uh, John, what the heck have you been talking about this whole time? Every time you start rambling on about D&D and uh, patron play and first edition and everything, what is that all about? He's putting all that in a book all together, concise and I suppose written in only the way Jeffro can. Uh, there's some people, man, you either like Jeffro's voice or you hate it. Is anybody neutral on Jeffro's prose style? I don't think
It
so.
says Pro Style is on Twitter.
Not anymore. He's been banned. I banned myself, deactivated my account. Stupid social media. So I wanted to plug that. I haven't purchased it yet. DW is the first to purchase it. Um, but I am confident in that I know what's in it and what's going in it. So if you like what we've been talking about on the show, you're gonna enjoy the content of this book.
I'd like to plug something else too. Um, Friend of the show, Rick Stump, uh, has had a podcast running since last year. He took some time off from it. He's now up to episode 16. And he dropped into my DMs and said, "Hey, I'd like you to, I'd like you to just shoot me some comments on this episode." So, um, the episode the first episode I listened to was episode 16. It was his latest, and I thought it was great. Um, he was talking about good writing and bad writing, but not writing in the sense of novels, which is what we normally talk to around here. He's talking about writing uh, in the sense of lore, making up a background for your world. So he's talking about the original Star Wars movies. He's talking about Warhammer 40K tabletop battles and the lore behind that. And he's talking about the Rifts tabletop role playing game and the lore behind that. And it is a short episode, it's about 20 minutes. And he talks about lore that I hadn't heard before. He ties them all together into a bigger topic. Um, it's not just a lore show. He has a thesis that he's going towards, and he uses each of those three as examples of how they either advance or don't advance this good writing of lore. Um, and I found it enjoyable. I found it entertaining. All of the examples he uses are on topic. He doesn't repeat himself. Um, he doesn't repeat himself. and and he I was entertained by the show, and listening to the episode made me want to go back and listen to other episodes of the show, which very rarely happens with podcasts I've listened to. So I'm going to shoot. It's actually available on several different uh, podcast services, but I'm going to go back and shoot a link um, to the podcast to Dornall, so we can uh, put it in the comments to the show.
Yeah, it's the I got
I,
the link there in the chat now, and we'll get that in the show notes after the show.
anyways, I recommend it. I had a good time.
Great, cool. In fact, uh, Rick Rick pinged me about coming on and talking about the show. We still have that psionics discussion. We can talk about scheduling that later. So Rick's finally moving again. That's cool. That's cool. Well, let's move things along. There's let's. Do you want to stick to D&D? Talk about Alexander Macreus.
That's the big long topic. I'm going to have to see how we can shrink that down. Let's do Daisy Jones and the Six, because I can do that fairly quickly.
Sounds good.
Daisy Jones and the Six is a new show that's on Amazon Prime Video. It's a drama. Apparently, I hit it at just the right time because I ran across new and updated episodes of Behind the Music, which they were showing on Paramount Plus. And they took, episodes of Behind the Music, which were broadcast originally on MTV back in the around, 2000s, late 90s. And they updated them and shot them like recently in the last couple years. Um, and so I watched a couple episodes of those, like Huey Lewis uh, episode, which was great. And so I got to hear a bunch of stories about these guys live. And then immediately after I had been listening to a couple of these, I tune on to Amazon Prime, and they've got this new show they've been pushing called Daisy Jones and the Six. And it is basically a drama, and it's based on a novel, which I've never heard of or never read. And it goes into this rise of a band in the late 60s and early 70s, and all the things they're doing and all the things they're saying are just like these real stories that I was listening to and Behind the Music. So I don't know if I would have been as entranced with the show if I hadn't just been listening to Behind the Music episodes. But it hit me at the right time. I was interested in the subject matter, So you guys know me. Usually I'm into like, sci-fi, fantasy, superheroes, horror, whatever. But I was pulled into um, this alternate universe where this band that never existed in the real world was doing their fighting thing and coming up from nothing. And it was set up kind of like a behind the music episode because you have the period of um, showing what was happening, the drama of it, and then they'd stop and they had a woman who was interviewing the band like 20 years later during the 90s. So it was very much like a behind the music episode. And the first three episodes were absolutely great. I mean, they were great drama. It was interesting. The characters pulled me in. The show isn't finished yet. I think there's probably 3 or 4 episodes left. And at the beginning, it was one episode a week. This week, for some reason, they dropped 3 episodes all at once. And so I watched all 3 last night. And the last 2 episodes have begun to drop off. Um, it is sad, but the character of Daisy has stopped being Daisy Jones. And I know I'm not giving you any details about the character or the band because we are staring down the barrel of running out of time. So I'm having to do this quickly. Um, the first 3 episodes are really good. They drew me into the show. They bought me, they bought the show, the rest of the series. I'm going to finish it out. But Daisy Jones has stopped being a real character and instead has become whatever the script needs her to be
Mm-hmm.
in order to make what has to happen. And um, Camille Marone is in the show. Um,
Who dat?
she, I can't remember what else she's been in, but I have seen her in other things before, and she is just outrageously beautiful. Um, and she steals and I don't mean like just physically beautiful. I mean her mannerisms, the way she carries herself, the way she plays her character. She just has fabulous charisma. She dominates the screen whenever she's on it. Um, and you can't help, your eyes can't help be drawn to her. She plays the wife of the lead singer. Anyways, Daisy Jones, Camille Marone's character just doesn't have any human dialogue. She has like robot person dialogue that they wish that is setting up the conflict that's going to drive the band towards what they've been hitting at all through the show. And they're hinting at what's coming, and they've already told you what's coming, so you know what's coming at the end of the show. But you don't know how it's going to get there, and that's what the show is about: is how they get to this place. Um, and it is it's sad that they have an actress with this amount of charisma who is this good at what she's doing and have given her this robot dialogue to carry out. And that's ruining the show. Daisy being this empty vessel for the plot to fill is ruining part of the show. I'm not saying this is unwatchable, but it's disappointing that they have ruined the plot of they have ruined the promise of the first 3 episodes.
Mm.
Um, so, yeah, I'm not exactly not recommending the show, but the last two episodes have kind of brought me down. Um, but again, there's 3 or 4 episodes left, so we'll see if they can pull it out, if this is just a slump in the middle of the series. However, there have been no filler episodes where they're just on repeat. Um, every episode has had a story, it's had an internal story, and the internal story has contributed to the longer story. They have secondary characters who have their own subplots that are interesting in and of themselves. And even the supporting characters are interesting and three-dimensional. Um, and the one guy who's just there as a spear carrier because he doesn't really um, have big stuff to do, who's the sound engineer at the studio, is still funny. Um, and he contributes to the show. Um, and I like him. He's a creep guy. So it is a really excellent show. Um, but it is not without its flaws, and I'm really hoping it doesn't. I'm really hoping they redeem it from the last 2 episodes. That's it.
I have nothing to add. I accept that it's a different change from the show where, oh yeah, it stinks at the beginning, but it takes a few episodes to get into it. And this one, it says, oh, what a great premise, and then writers take it off the rails.
I wouldn't say it's off the rails. I would say that 2 of the characters have become really disappointing. Uh, but they do have a chance to, bring those characters back in line with what they had been earlier in the series.
Fair.
I was expecting you to run off to IDMB and look up Camille Moreau. That's okay. That's what you usually do. I find myself talking about Camille Marone, and then you interrupt me and say, "Yes, well, she was in these 14 different TV shows," and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's her." Um, but anyways, let's jump tracks to our last topic of the show for the last 14 minutes,
Absolutely.
which is for Arbiter of Worlds, which is Alexander McChris's Substack. Had a great article this week, which is called A Manifesto in Defense of Simulationism. I got that review out in 4 minutes. I think that's a great.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Which, of course, you did great on that review. But Macrease, we had him on the show. He is simulationism incarnate. He is unabashedly, unreservedly, this is my jam. This is how I make games. If you read the book Arbiter of Worlds, where he got the name for the Substack, that's his manifesto about simulation. Tabletop RPGs as simulation is there in that book as well. So, but this is something new. Is adding some more fuel to the fire, DW?
Yeah. By the way, episode 5 of Rick Stump's podcast, Lore with Rick, is a discussion with Alexander McChris, and it dovetails with this article. So if you want some information that illuminates and supports this article, which I recommend, I highly recommend, if you're looking at RPG game design, if that topic interests you at all, you should read this article and you should listen to episode number 5 of Rick Stump's podcast because it absolutely undergirds this article. It also, and here's where the simulationism comes in. Just one example I got from the podcast illuminating this article. He talks about how important simulationism is. He got told by a submariner a Navy submarine officer, asked him where he got the stats for the Seawolf class submarine that shows up in Ascendant, his superhero RPG. And McChris said he derived them from some public information that was available on the web. And the Submariner told him that he was probably on a watch list now for divulging certain aspects of the Sea Wolf's operating capacity. It's I believe it was its crush depth that was a little too accurate and was actually classified information. So his
That dude's thorough.
Yeah. His work at deriving values was so accurate that it twigged some ears, and also he got some compliments from someone who works at DARPA on war games for aspects of his system in Ascendant. So he's not just a simulationist. He's a very, very good simulationist, apparently, according to the stories he told in that episode. And I just want to, what I would really like to do is see if we can contact Alexander, get him to come on the show to discuss this article. I think that would be a great show, but I'm just going to fast forward through everything and talk about the one aspect of the article that I thought was the most interesting. So I'm going to zip until we get to the D&D part, the AD&D part.
Oh, that's pretty near the beginning. Talking about
Yes.
Gary Gygax in AD&D. I've got it up on the screen for everybody hanging out on YouTube watching this live. You can follow along. His assertion that despite Gary Gygax's cries to the contrary, he was pretty simulationist in writing AD&D. That's the gist of Matt Chris's article.
Yep. First game mechanic is aging. And effects on your attributes. The next game mechanic is disease and parasitic infestation. Both of which are obviously simulation game mechanics. And these are just, and I'm quoting here from the article, these are just the first few of countless subsystems found throughout advanced Dungeons and Dragons that simulate, well, everything. The subsystems found in AD&D are as intricate and detailed as any I'd created in Ascendant, and I am an avowed simulationist. So, and he talks about why Gygax might have had the impetus to keep this hidden because of the wargaming culture at the time. And then he goes into, the dramatist, gamist, simulationist threefold theory, and then brings up the GNS theory, cursed be its name, and all who pushed it onto gaming culture. But the fact is, I disagree with GNS theory and the aspects of GNS theory which got swapped backwards onto um, DGS.
No, I just skimmed the article, and we're talking about DGS being the dramatist approach to gaming, gamist, and simulationist. And
Right.
DNS sort of rephrases those as, what was it? I'm drawing a blank here. Narrativist,
Gamist, gamist, narrativist, and
simulationist.
simulationist. I don't want to go into those. I have railed about those before. Um, it's a crap theory.
But okay, go ahead.
It's a crap theory that's designed to push something that isn't role playing games into role playing games. I will say this: the original DGS are styles of play. They're not they're not game design theories. They're not describing rule sets. They're describing styles of playing role playing games. And on that level, they're fine. I happen to believe that Dramatist is about enjoyable stories. I happen to believe that enjoyable stories come from, organically arise from, play of the game. And I believe that um, a rule set that a rule set exists to emulate in-game world considerations, the in-game world physics and metaphysics. So if you have magic, the rule set exists to emulate what that magic is like. If you have, and to the degree where it is plausible, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. And some people are going, the word realistic is completely inapplicable when applied to rule sets. No rule set is actually realistic. The word that you're looking for is verisimilitude. Some rule sets are more accurate than others. Most rule sets are in more accurate in some area than other rule sets. But in certain rule sets, you'll have things like karma or other luck effects, which may actually be, you know, reflective of real life. Um, so this division of simulationist, gamist, and dramatist, I think is a false. Uh, I think is a false division to begin with. Rule sets exist to emulate or simulate the physics and metaphysics of a world, whatever they may be, and the rule set should set up challenges for the players. Sometimes those challenges may be fair, sometimes those challenges may be unfair, and I mean, if the players come upon the lair of a gigantic ancient dragon, they should have the wisdom to stop and think, hey, we should get the heck out of here and not bother it. Um, and stories are retrospectives. Uh, you are relating the events that happened during play after the fact. They are not something that the game system, the mechanics, are setting up for you. They're things that happen. They're things that you construct after the fact out of the events of the game. So these are not three opposite goals. They all work together. Challenges arise from the rules. The rules are a simulation of the physics and metaphysics of the game world, and stories are built out of the result of play, out of the results of the challenges of combat, of traps, of social interactions, of whatever. So these are not three opposite things. They all come out of each other. So, yes, simulationism is an important thing. I agree with Macris on that entirely. And the extent to which simulationism has been thrown away is the extent to which role playing games have been undermined and destroyed. That's it. I'm done.
Well said. I just to add my 2 cents. Yeah, it's a shame the the damage that's been done to the hobby, to the perception of people, like the way they perceive what a game is because of that, cry against simulationists. Because when I was just as an anecdote, when I was young and we were playing Cyberpunk 2020 all the time, you could go to forums and spend hours and hours of discussions with gun nuts and whatever else discussing what are the proper attributes of a particular firearm and particular ammunition. What's the difference between a 38 special and a 357 Magnum? Is it a +1 damage bonus, or how do that sort of thing? And and I don't think they help their case any, right? Because that kind of simulationism doesn't do anything. But, and I think this is where McCrease gets it right. Even if I think McCrease might go a little overboard with the super accurate submarine stats, right? The stuff that you find in Adventure Conquer King System and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons are just enough of that simulationist design to make that world come alive. And that's my experience in those games. Um, that's just my 2 cents. Otherwise, I love what you said there, DW.
All right. Well, there are
What?
things happening.
Ooh. Like what?
Things happening after the show, which means we have to shut this one down early. So,
Yeah, sorry for the late start, but I'm glad we got on to chat about this stuff. I've got the link to that manifesto in the show notes, and all the other links we talked about are available. And I do want to say hello. Thanks for showing up on such short notice. Video Mirador, good to see you. Simon Hogwood, Mercurius Olicus, thanks for showing up and hanging out live, as well as everybody else who's listening live. Um, and I do appreciate you guys. I hope everybody listens later, enjoys it. And thanks for doing the show on short notice, on short time, D Dubs. You rock.
is it my turn now?
Sure is.
All right. I want to thank everybody who turned up and listened live, participated in our always awesome chat. And of course, we want to thank everybody who will listen later. This has been Geek Gab for Saturday, March 11th, 2023, episode 307. We are here just about every week at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. You can get us on youtube.com/geekgab. Once again, that's youtube.com/geekgab. Go ahead and click subscribe and then click the bell to be notified, usually of when our show is going live. We are also available on the Google Play Store, on SoundCloud.com, and on the iTunes Store. We are signing out for today, folks. But don't you worry, don't you fret. We will be back.